DSC-RX1, and today we have probably one of the most niche cameras in the market. This is the brand new Sony Cybershot DSC-RX1. This is the world's first 35mm full frame compact camera. Yes, so you have a 35mm sensor there, a fixed lens, that is you cannot interchange this lens, and compact because it's almost palm size. So Sony likes you to believe that you would have a full frame DSLR performance in your palm and in a body that fits right in your pocket. Well, not exactly pocket, but who knows, if you have one of those hip hop kind of jeans, then it might just fit in there. So I'm going to quickly show you the hardware a bit now. It's small, alright, but then Sony probably couldn't have gone any smaller, because you can see the sensor and the lens just about fits the body here. So it extends right from the edge to edge. Then it's little heavier for its size, but of course we expected that, knowing the sensor and almost the heavy lens, and then total metal mount on the body with patches of rubbers there for your hold. On the front side you have the brilliant Carl Zeiss Variosona T35mm fixed f/2 lens, and then you have a metal lens cap. We have never seen a better quality cap than this in the whole world. Yeah. Then you have the autofocus assist lamp here, and then you have a focus mode dial. Let's look at the lens a little closely. So in lens you have three rings. You have this one, and then this one. Now this is your aperture ring, and did you hear the noise? It just fits very nicely into all these points, so that you do not slip the points whenever you're moving the ring in a hurry. See, amazing, a music to your ears. Reminds me those film cameras back then. Then you have a minimum focal distance ring here. So you have two modes. This is your macro mode. There you can see 0.2 m till 0.35 m, and this is the normal mode. And then you have a focus fine-tune ring here. This comes into play when you have your DMF selected here, which is autofocus with manual override, as well as your manual focus. In total autofocus mode, this is almost redundant. You do not need to use this lens, use this ring. Apart from that, on top you have the custom button there, so you can assign a function here. The exposure compensation dial, you have the power lever, your shutter release button, shooting mode dial, you have a accessory hot shoe, and then you have the pop out flash that you initiate from here. There you see. So that's the flash. It does not bend, so you only can trigger the flash right to the front of the camera. This is also I would say pretty thin, as in I'm not sure how strong it is. On the back you have that flash trigger button, and then you have the playback button. You have the 3-inch LCD there. It's not touchscreen. You have the command dial, the exposure lock, then you have the function button, you have the multifunctional dial, the OK button here, menu, and delete button. You have the dedicated video recording button, but we're a little surprised by the strange position of the video recording button here. It kind of almost like falling off the body of the camera. You would have liked it somewhere like here or somewhere. But anyway, it does not hinder you much while you're shooting, but you just need to fish for it a little. Similar with the case of this focus mode dial. So whenever you're shooting, it gets a little hard to change the focus modes, because particularly if you do not have a very dry finger, then it continuously slips off. See, on this side you have the ports, so that's your data transfer plus charging port. Then you have the mini HDMI port, and then you have the jack for your external mic. You have to charge the camera from via this port, because there is no external charger that's provided in the box. You'll have to buy that separately. So unless you have bought that, even if you have two batteries, you need to put this camera in idle, because you'll have to charge this from the body. That's a shame, knowing the cost of this camera, which I'll come to later. There's nothing much on this side. You have your eyelets for your landlord there. Then below you have the tripod socket, and then your battery and SD card compartment. Yep. Let's check out the battery ones. So it's an NBBX1 1240 mAh. Right there. Then your full size SD card, and you have a speaker there. Yeah, so that's all in all the ports and button. Let's talk about the shooting dial a bit. So the RX1 has almost all the options that you would otherwise get on a full frame DSLR. You have the full auto mode, you have the program mode, where you can change the ISO and all stuff. Aperture priority, where you change the aperture and the camera automatically changes the shutter speed. So you can go to a maximum aperture of f/2, as you can see, which is very bright, exceedingly fast, and gives you great images under low light. Then you have a shutter priority, which is the vice versa of aperture priority, and you can have a full manual mode if you would rather take all into your own hand. Amazingly, you have 3 custom users modes, so that you can save your up to 3 custom settings in this 3 mode, so that you do not have to customize these presets every time you start shooting. Then you have the video mode there, you have the sweep panorama mode, and then some scene modes. So this camera can shoot panoramas only horizontally and not vertically, for your information. Yeah, so let's check out the interface now a bit. I'm gonna switch this on, and the interface of the RX1 is pretty similar to that of the Alpha A99. You have the quick info there. You can track focus, cancel from here. You can have the leveler. There you go. You can customize this and the bottom. You can customize the AEL button as well as the C button. So the first thing you should do when you get this camera is assign your favorite functions to those 5 custom buttons, so that you can have all the most used or your favorite functions right at your fingertip and can execute them in one touch. So we'll go to menu, and there you see you can assign functions to all those 5 buttons there. I've assigned my favorite buttons, but you can also assign anything else that you want. For example, you can have all this. The drive mode is basically single shot, continuous shot, or self shot modes, and you have all these options. So I have assigned ISO to my C button. Accordingly, my metering and white balance and flash modes. Yeah. So there you see I'm in the aperture priority mode. So the moment I press the C button, I can change the ISO very nicely with this multifunctional dial. There are multiple ways to selecting that. I can also press this. I can also change it with this dial, etc, etc. So press C button again, and then I have this for aerial hold. I can press this for my metering as I showed you, and I can press this and change my white balance. I can go this and change my flash mode. Yep. Now the most important button here on the interface is the FN or the function button. Pressing this will show you all the functions that you might need to change very frequently. So you have the drive mode, which is kind of like single shot or continuous shot. There you have continuous shooting, and then you have a speed priority continuous shooting. Now the difference between these two are that in continuous shooting you have slightly less frame rate because the camera quickly shows you the preview before going into the next shot, whether in speed priority continuous shot it does not show you the preview and it just continuously starts shooting. Also remember, to get a very good frame rate out of this camera, please use at least a class 10 fast SD card. You have your self timer, and then you also have your bracketing adjustments there. Then you have your flash modes, you have your autofocus area, you see, soft skin effect, and some other stuffs. You can press the left button to go to some other stuff like your picture effect. You have your toy camera effects and pop colors and whatnot. And oops, sorry. You have your creative styles. Standard, vivid, neutral, and it basically kind of changed the colors a bit, almost like using some filters. Then you have DR off or DR auto or HDR. This is for your dynamic range. You have your white balance, flash compensation, metering mode, and ISO. So it gets very convenient here, but you can also change them, of course, via the 5 buttons if you have assigned any of this function to those buttons. Let's check out the menu once. So this menu stays the same in both shooting, still, shooting video, as well as in playback mode. I'm going to quickly run you through the options. You can just simply rotate the multifunctional dial. So you have 50i, you have 50p, you have 25p because it's in PAL mode. In NTSC mode you will have 60 and 30 frames per second. But then the irritating thing is, the moment you switch this camera to an NTSC mode, every time you switch on and try to shoot a still or a video, it will first show that the camera is running on an NTSC mode for about 5 seconds, which gets pretty annoying when you quickly want to shoot something. I had to switch that back to PAL mode, but I like NTSC mode better. You have your steady shots. Oh, this fancy stuff. Peaking level, of course. I've shown you this. Now you can have your lens shading in auto or off. We always suggest keeping them on. Chromatic aberration and distortion. So the camera does a very good job of correcting all this when you switch this on, and we suggest you actually switch this on, because particularly in some case, like at least in case of vignetting, if you switch this off, then the picture shows a kind of vignetting at the sides, particularly here and here. Switching this on wouldn't harm you in any way, so we suggest you have them on. you can select your video modes. So in image size, there you can have a maximum of 24 MP, and then you can go down to 10 MP and even below. Also, you can shoot in RAW and JPEG or extra fine. It's always recommended that you shoot only in RAW because that will give you great post-processing capabilities. I've selected extra fine just for the review purpose, but then to actually shoot in real life, I would always use the RAW mode. You can change your aspect ratio to 16:9. So the moment you switch to 16:9, you've seen the maximum size that's available came down to 20 MP. So you'll have to take a call whether you want a 3:2 aspect ratio and 24 MP or you would want otherwise. And so that's the menu, and this is in playback mode, so you can see all the informations there. You can choose to display whatever informations you want here. Press up to go back to the histogram. Press up again for not displaying the info at all. You can see the menu stays the same. The FN button in playback mode gives you a preview of all the images. You can have it arranged in 4 or even more. And then you can zoom in here and check out the photo you just took. Yep. So that's about it, almost the interface. It's very easy to navigate, and if you spend just a little time, it does not have a very high learning curve. And if you have already used Sony DSLRs, then it of course doesn't get easier than that. But then even if you're migrating to a Sony for the first time, then also it should not take much time to get acquainted with the interface and moving around. The performance of the DSC-RX1 is stellar, to say the least. The system is very fast and responsive overall, except the continuous autofocus a bit, which is kind of sluggish, particularly under low light. And still images are same or better quality than your full frame DSLRs, and we mean it. Low light images are great when you have chromatic aberration correction on, then it's almost negligible. Also make sure to have your vignetting filter or the lens shading mode on, because otherwise the photo shows kind of prominent vignetting, particularly in these points. Barrel distortion is again a minimum, and we would not expect that from a 35mm lens, because that's not exactly a wide lens, so we did not expect the barrel distortion to be much anyway. The only thing that we're concerned about is the continuous autofocus in the movie mode. Now this guy takes its own time in focusing on the subject, and particularly under low light it takes ages to focus on the subject, and at times, as you can see in the sample video, I had to point the camera head on the person sitting on the scooter so that the camera could focus on him. Other than that one point, the performance of the RX1 is amazing. Now the thing is that this guy cost almost 1,79,000 Indian rupees, and you do not also get a viewfinder and external charger, or almost $2,799 US. Now, does this camera justify the price? It's very hard to say that actually. If you consider the mass, no, it does not. It's way overpriced. But then this camera is not for the masses. This camera is for those extremely serious, I would say, street photojournalists who would who would not want to carry those heavy DSLRs and would not want to annoy people or let people know that you're coming particularly for that the shooting and all kind of stuff. So this guy can be hidden very nicely under your clothes, and you can go and have shoot around without people knowing much or people suspecting much about what you're exactly doing. Now, by street photography, we do not mean that you start shooting fast moving animals or you start shooting street plays or sports. It's not exactly for that, we would say. But then otherwise, a 35mm lens, you can have great portrait shots or landscape shots, or in general other street hustle bustle shots where the subject are not moving very fast. In that case, this camera is second to none. So for those people, probably this kind of a price point is within reach. But otherwise, for masses, well, you would definitely find this camera very pricey, considering the fact that the masses would want a more versatile body to be able to use under various conditions for various purposes. Now, you would not want to use one particular camera for portraits, another camera for wildlife, another camera for wide landscape shooting. So for those kind of people, yeah, this camera does not fit their bill. But otherwise, price, I would say slightly overpriced, but not exorbitantly high, particularly after you see the quality of still images that comes out of this particular guy. Yeah, thank you.